In the previous lesson, we talked about button groups and dropdowns. In this lesson, we'll continue exploring the Bootstrap components, and we'll talk about some pretty used stuff like tabs, pills, and navigation lists. All the controls we'll be talking about in this lesson share the same base class, nav, and pretty much the same markup. So consider a simple unordered list. Let's do about 5 list items, each containing a link that says link number. Alright, so nothing fancy so far. Add the class of nav and nav tabs to it, and it changes into a tab navigation. You can use the active class to any list item to make that the default tab or the active tab. Pills work exactly the same, so let's see an example of those. I'm simply going to copy this markup and change from nav tabs to nav pills. Alright, so this is the basic pill navigation. Now all tabs and pills are on the same line by default. If you want to stack them, add the nav stacked class. So nav stacked on both lists. And as you can see, they are now stacked, and the tabs received a border around them and also separators and some round corners. You can also disable a certain link from the lists by using the disabled class on the list item. So for example, if I want to disable the third list item or the third link, I would just do this, list item class disabled. Now be aware, this link is still clickable. It doesn't have a hover state and it's grayed out, but you can still click it. So you might need to use some JavaScript to prevent that. You can also align the links to the left or right by using the pull left and pull right utility classes. So let's see an example. Pull left looks something like this. You can see it's floated to the left, and it's kind of a nightmare in terms of the layout. But if we float this to the right, pull right, we get one list here and one list here. Of course, with proper classes, you can just clear these floats and everything will be back to normal. Tabs and pills can also have drop-downs. So let's see how we can do it. First of all, I'm just going to remove the nav stacked. Okay, so you can see the example better. So let's add a drop-down to our fifth link in the tabs. First of all, add the class of drop-down to the list item. Then the actual link should say class drop-down toggle. So this is very similar to what we did in the previous lessons. And also data toggle should be tab. All right. Let's change this actually to drop down and add a drop-down arrow like this. Okay, great. So this is the trigger for our drop-down. The drop-down itself, UL with a class of drop-down menu, which contains some list items, something like this. All right, let's check it out. Okay, so I think I forgot something. Let's see, list item class dropdown. href class dropdown toggle. That toggle is actually dropdown, not tab. My mistake. Okay, so here we go. Perfect. And this also works for pills. So if we change the markup here to pills, we get the exact same thing. Tabs are really great to use and really easy, but they are worthless unless they can switch between some kind of content. So let's see how we can do that. Well, first of all, you need to include the bootstrap-tab.js file. I'm currently including all of the Bootstrap libraries, so no need to do that. After that, you need to create the actual tab contents. So let's do that for our initial list. And we'll do a div with a class of tab content. And each tab content should be wrapped in a div with a class of tab pane. So let's do tab pane with a class of active, since it's the first tab. And let's do a paragraph in the first one. Let's say tab 1 content. All right, great. Next, let's do some more tab contents for tab 2, 3, and 4. Remove the active class on these, and also we'll give them some unique IDs to be able to target them. Okay, so currently they are showing, but only the active tab. Nothing happens though if I click on the links. So let's point to the tab contents from the navigation. So this goes to tab 1, this goes to tab 2. Let's remove the disabled class from this one. Tab 3, and finally tab 4. Also, on each link, we must add data toggle equals tab. All right, so let's check it out. And there you go. Finally, if you're working with left or right aligned tabs, then you must wrap everything in a div with a class of tabbable. So let's check it out. Div class equals tabbable. All right, like this. Now, the great thing about these tabs is their flexibility. You can have them at the bottom, on the top, to the left, or to the right. In addition to the tabbable class, you can add any of these classes. Tabs left to align them to the left, or tabs right, or tabs below. Just a small note here, you must move the tab content on top of the navigation, like this. If you ever need to create a sidebar which contains groups of links with optional headers, then you can use the nav lists. Very similar to tabs and pills, use the classes of nav and nav list to a simple list of links. So let's see an example. I'm going to copy this, okay, and change this to nav list. Okay, so this is the default state. You can also disable certain links. Disabled. Okay, and the active one shows the currently selected list item. You can also create headers by adding the nav header class to a list item. So for example, I'm going to add a list item, nav header, and I'll just place a simple text like header 1. And this right here is created. Let's repeat the procedure. Header 2, just like this. And as you can see, the headers add a bit of top padding, so it's kind of distance from the group of links on the top of it. You can add horizontal dividers to this type of list by using a blank list item with a class of divider. So let's do one right here, a list item with a class of divider. And there it is. Now, nesting is also possible. You simply, for example, if I want to nest a list right here, just do ul with a class of nav and nav list. Something like that. So we saw how tabs and the other navigation controls work and how they're styled. But probably the most prominent navigation item from a web page is the main menu, which sits in a navigation bar, usually at the top of the page. Let's have a look at that in the next lesson.